Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. We interview business owners who've built successful businesses to learn from them their challenges, their victories, in the hopes that you find these stories educational and inspirational. We're very fortunate today to have with us a gentleman who's built a beautiful, beautiful business over many years, Mr. Cesar Viramontes. Mr. Viramontes, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you again, Homero, and congratulations on the success of your program.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Viramontes, you're famous for having built, been a large part of the gene washing industry, but today, what is it that you're doing and what job do you have today?
Today we are embarking on the commercial side of the laundry industry. As you may or may not know, the last 54 years of my life, I have been involved in the laundry industry, and that's what we do, and that's what's been good for us. And with the blue jean industry moving out of El Paso, that by the way was considered the blue jean capital of the world, and where at one time I calculated we were washing or finishing 2 million blue jeans per week, and I was doing 250,000 of them per week. We were doing 50,000 pair of blue jeans every day, 5 days a week.
Wow.
And with the free trade agreement and the industry, the manufacturers looking for lesser wages, it moved away, and we followed it to Mexico, and we have a facility in the middle of the state of Chihuahua, where we have about 1,300 employees, and we've been there about 12 to 15 years. So we inherited, if you will, a 80,000 square foot building on Montana Street on Far East El Paso, and infrastructure, the laundry infrastructure was there. So after waiting and putting it off for several years, I decided to go into the commercial laundry industry and compete with, can I mention businesses?
Oh, yes.
And compete with such businesses as Mission Linen, Uniforms, Prudential, and others, 2 or 3 others, and Supreme Laundry, which is where I came out of. That will be our competition. And with my background in the purchasing and installation and knowledge of the laundry equipment and our facilities, we are off to a great start. And I feel very good about our opportunity to create a very competitive business here in El Paso.
So you're really an entrepreneur. You've built, went through the ups and downs of the gene washing business, stayed with it, and now you're off into another venture using the knowledge base that you have. Correct. Now, we've known you as an El Pasoan, but you were born in the what side?
I was born on the Mexican side of the border, about I'm going to say about 10 miles south of Fabens, but on the Mexican side, in a community. The name is Prajedis. In the old days, it was San Ignacio, until the Mexican government decided to name communities with saints' names to generals' names. So now it's Prajedis. But I was born there in 1940, and we migrated to El Paso, to the United States, when I was 5 years old.
5 years old, wow.
Correct.
You remember that crossing?
I remember it like a dream. I remember coming over on the streetcar with my mom, who was a United States citizen born across from Paloma. So it's a community in New Mexico.
South of Deming. Yeah.
Columbus.
Thank you.
Columbus. So she decided that she wanted a better life, and she brought us over. It's interesting how that happened, because my mom had a cousin in Deming. And so her cousin asked her to come and visit and bring the children. There was 4 of us. And so we came to Deming and spent a year. I remember going to kindergarten in Deming. And then my dad, who was not a U.S. citizen, after a year, arranged his papers and was able to come to the United States and get a job in Canutillo, in the farming area. And so we joined him there after a year of living in Deming.
Wow. So then you went to schools in Canutillo.
I went to school in Canutillo. I repeated kindergarten. I could never figure out why I was going to be a senior and I was already 18 until I started thinking back. I repeated kindergarten. I went to kindergarten when I was 5, and then I went back to kindergarten when I was 6.
So
you lost in the shuffle.
But you came to learn English.
We didn't speak English, but that was not unusual. Most of our peers or friends didn't speak English when we went to school.
And so did you go to Canutillo High or El Paso High?
No, we left Canutillo in 1953 when I was 13. And again, my mom was the visionary. She wanted a better life for us. And the farm life was great growing up. But we lived, the owner gave my dad the material to build a home. So he had to work for him as long as we lived in that home. My mom worked at the cannery in Anthony. It was away from the highway. It was the old cannery.
Yes.
And through her friends, she heard about houses in El Paso, which was far then, government housing for poor people. So her being a citizen applied, and we were accepted. So we left the farm. My dad got a better paying job, and we left the farm and came to El Paso to the Sherman projects, which were brand new, which was exciting, running water, and it was neat.
That was nice. And your high school, you went to?
I went to Jefferson for my junior high, 8th grade, and then my parents decided that they wanted me to get an education at Cathedral. Wow. Because my brother had graduated from Cathedral, and he did very well, but not everybody can do well at Cathedral, especially coming out of the public school system. Yeah. With all respect to public schools, you're not really trained, so I could only go 3 years, and then I knew I was not going to graduate with my class, so in the summer of my junior year's summer, I got a job at Supreme Laundry, and I stayed there for 17 years. I never went back to school. Wow.
So you have 3 other siblings, brothers and sisters?
Now we're only 2. They've all passed away.
Really?
Yeah. My poor mom, she had to bury 4 of us.
Really? Wow. Wow. And so you started working at 18?
At 18, 1958.
And I remember that laundry, that was the Supreme used to service the military. Is that the laundry?
No, I think you're referring to Desert, which was...
So
Mr.
you were
Goldman.
Okay. And who was it that you worked for?
Mr. Goldberg.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a different laundry. Thank you. It's easy to confuse from...
Yes, the competitors, the same operations, but different owners.
Okay. And so you did everything for him after a while.
I was very fortunate. Mr. Goldberg liked me, and I liked him a lot. He's one of the main reasons that I'm who I am. So I did everything that he asked me. I drove the truck, fixed the machine, and ran errands and ran around with him, visiting customers. I was very fortunate. He really took me under his wing and showed me well.
And you learned?
I learned. I really did, and he also helped me get in business because he sold me a couple of laundromats, the one at Piedra Street, which is where we started washing blue jeans, and the one on Dyer Street. at 5604 Dyer.
Did you know about the jean washing industry when you started, or was it just growing?
It had just started. In fact, my boss, Mr. Goldberg, was washing blue jeans. And that's how I got started. I already had the laundromat on Piedra Street, and one of Mr. Goldberg's customers did not want to, decided to lower the price on Mr. Goldberg. Mr. Goldberg had plenty of work because they were one of the major laundries and they could wash tons of blue jeans. And so I asked Mr. Goldberg if I could visit with Mr. Viola, who was a garment manufacturer here in El Paso, about that business, and he said fine. So I visited Mr. Viola, and he started me in the blue jean washing business. Eddie Moet, who was his manager, asked me to do some samples, and I did them special for them, and they liked them, and they were my first customers.
Wow, Eddie Moet, high
Eddie
school.
Moet, yeah.
I know him from high school. That's interesting. And so you started from a laundromat, and were you washing at the laundromat?
I was watching at the laundromat at night after our regular customers left.
Wow.
We ruined, if you will, that laundromat because we were going at least 12 hours washing blue jeans at night, and the machines are not made for that. So about a year later, I had to start buying bigger washing machines.
Was that process washing the machines? Was that when they used pumices?
That was before.
Okay.
However, pumice followed right behind that. Pumice washing is also very interesting. I never even knew what pumice was, and I know that my mom had a pumice stone. She used to rub her elbows and her heels, and when pumice started, I said, where am I going to find pumice? I found a business in California that sold the pumice stone for 35 cents a pound, which was very expensive. You're only buying rocks. And then I went to the market in Juarez to look for pumice, and I saw a stand after walking around for 30 minutes that had a couple of pumice stones on the counter, and I asked the young man, hey, I'm looking for this, and well, you can buy that. You can buy whatever you want. And I said, no, but I need a bunch. And he pointed to a bag in the corner of his little store. He said, well, you can have the whole bag. And I said, oh, no, I'm looking for tons of pumice. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I had a relationship in Mexico, in Juarez, with some construction people, a lady by the name of Eva, who became my comadre. And she was very much aware of where to find material, and she found it for 5 cents a pound.
Wow, what a difference.
Yes, and we started buying by the truckloads. And it was crazy because pumice is what sandpaper is made out of. And your washing machines are normally, the cylinder is made out of stainless steel. Stainless steel is an expensive product, and pumice just wore it out, besides clogging up the sewer lines. And it was getting crazy, and we were messing up the water treatment facilities with all the pumice and clogging up the lines. And eventually, that's why I decided to go out of town and move to East Montana Street, which was not in the city then. And we created our own water systems, and you probably remember the alfalfa fields, and we had several wells. And
that's a whole story in itself.
Yes.
Now you started with the laundromat, and then you went to a larger facility. You went from how many employees to how many?
When we started washing blue jeans, I had 4 employees, and then we went to 10 and 15. At Piedra Street, we probably had a maximum of 30.
Really?
Yes, and then when we moved to the east side industrial area, across from Cielo Vista, we rented a 10,000 square foot building, and there we probably grew to about 100 employees. And it was real crazy doing 3 shifts and no parking, and
Wow.
it was fun.
And then from there then you decided to build a facility East Montana
Well,
Street.
before that, we rented a couple of buildings on Market Street.
Okay.
There in the same industrial area, with a total of about 40,000 square feet
Okay.
in 2 buildings, which was kind of, complicated, moving goods from one building to the next to have them different operations done on them, and using all that pumice and creating problems for the water people. And that's when I decided to go look for a place in East El Paso. The person that turned me on to that is, at the time, was the head of the TNRCC, Hector Villa.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, he said, Mr. Viramontes, there's a lot of brackish water, which is non-potable. It's salty, it's briny. It's good for watching blue jeans, especially. It's not potable, and so we went and found the water and built a 65,000 square foot building that we added 15,000 square foot later, and we worked there for 20 years.
So that was your main operation.
That was our main operation.
And how many employees did you have there?
We had there up to. We had in that building we had up to about 500, but then we grew, and decided to build the plant where the building where the sheriff is now, because we had 2 shifts in the area where that's more woman related, and the second shift was not as productive as the first shift, which is expected. So we put the numbers together, and we figured that it would benefit us to build another building. So we built that 100,000 square foot building where the sheriff is now, and moved some of our operation over there. And then that second shift was just as good as the first shift. So it really paid for itself. It was not rocket science.
Now, but you were doing something special with the water too. You were using brackish water, and then you were using it to water fields. You
Yes.
put some fields.
Yes, since we were outside the city, we were outside the Public Service Board service area, and the water coming in is a lot easier, 100 times easier than the water going out, because that's your sewage water, and you need to find a place. You need to do something with it. In El Paso, our sewage water goes to the water treatment plants, and they put it either in the river or for farming. So we decided that we would treat the water, and what I mean treat it is removing all the chemicals that we use in the process. So we built 15 acres of ponds, 2 ponds that held 65 million gallons of water.
Wow.
And that gave us what we called retention time, to bring the water back to be able to use it for irrigation. We injected oxygen into the water. It's called aeration. It's not rocket science either,
Yeah.
but for me it was
Yeah.
back in those days.
Wow.
So, and we had 100 acres of alfalfa. It was beautiful. Had about 300 pistachio trees. At one time I even had 15 ostriches
Yes.
in the back. It was
Ostriches.
real neat, and everybody wanted to go back there. We would do tours every day. We'd do tours.
Really? Wow.
All the industry visited us, and a lot of people copied us. It's all right with me,
It was a great idea.
It was,
It really
yes.
helped the water.
And we saved El Paso 1 million gallons of water per day,
Wow, per day.
of potable drinking water.
Now you had one primary client.
Levi Strauss, after going through different manufacturers, Calvin Klein, Wrangler, Lee, Farah, we did business for everybody, Sun Apparel.
Okay.
And then finally Levi came calling, and at one time we were exclusive Levi contractors. So that Levi made us what we are in the garment industry.
So you got to know the Levi family.
I got to know some of the family, and become friends with some of them.
Wow.
Very, very nice relationship.
So in this process, Mr. Viramontes, you became a large business. How did you learn business?
Good question, and we talked about it before we got started. I call myself a laundry person with a lot of knowledge in the installation and operation of laundry equipment. We're talking about water, steam, hot water, compressed air, water softeners, and trenches and that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm very familiar with from my days at Supreme Laundry. As we grew, we hired chemists. We hired, of course, security people. We hired employee, what do you call the employee people?
Human resource.
Human resources people, and medical people to be there to assist our employees. And I always knew that after paying our bills and paying the bank, banks have been in my life since I started business. That's been an interesting story also. And I hired good accounting people and learned how to do business with accounting firms for auditing purposes and make sure that I'm paying my taxes on time. And thank God we've never had those kind of problems.
You stayed ahead of the IRS. That's
Yes,
great.
very much.
That's a big issue. And the banks, were they fair to you?
They were, in most cases. I remember Jimmy Onik, who was with Chase Bank or El Paso National Bank at the time, I think. He was very good to me when we first started, helping me meet my payroll. However, later on, we were doing business with a bank that decided, when we went to Mexico, they decided about 2 years after we were in Mexico that they wanted out of Mexico. And that gave me that put me through a very difficult period of about 10 years, maybe, yeah, more or less 10 years, 10 years, which was very difficult, but we managed. That was, talk about education. When the bank decided that they didn't want to do business in Mexico, we needed to find another bank. We had a debt at that time of about $18 million, 18 point, closer to 19. And you can't just find a bank from one day to the other. So we kept paying the bank, and they kept telling us that they wanted out. And eventually, the push came to shove, and they started asking me to sell assets to pay them. And we never missed a payment, but they didn't want to be in Mexico. And 80% of our assets were in Mexico. We invested $20 million in Mexico. So I kept selling properties, and thank God that I acquired a good chunk of land and selling assets and paying the bank. And finally, they came to me and said, we want everything. Wow. So you need to sell your building on Montana Street. And I said, I'm not going to sell my building Montana Street. And I said, they say, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm not, because I won't have anywhere to go. And they said, well, we're pulling your note. And so I found a group of El Pasoans, lenders, high interest, but they saved me. And by then we owed the bank $10.8 million. And how much would they take for the note? They wouldn't tell us, of course, because they said we're going to auction it. We're going to put it up for sale. And of course, most of our assets were in Mexico, so there was not a lot of people very eager to buy assets in Mexico. And we said, then we looked at our contract, and they had all the rights to do that. However, we had to agree to let them do that. So in exchange for agreeing to let them sell our assets, we asked to be allowed to participate in the bidding process. And so they said, well, they had no choice. So how much is a $10.8 million debt worth? And they wouldn't tell us, of course. And we finally found a lender in El Paso that would lend us the money. And we still couldn't find out how much they wanted. So let's ask them. Let's find out. It took us about 3 months. We were doing business between San Diego, Phoenix, and Charlotte, which is the bank's headquarters. And we finally got a lead. Somebody said that it had to be anything north of 7 on a 10.8. Okay, that's interesting. So how much do we offer, Mr. Viramontes? And you know, the joke is offers $7,000,001, right? I said, no, offers 7.1. And we settled for 7.3.
Okay.
So we saved $3 million.
So you bought back your plant.
We bought back our plant. But now we owed $7 million, right? Yeah. At 12% interest.
Well, oh wow. Yeah. So you picked up interest, but you lowered some of the principal.
Yeah. And then we lowered the debt by paying aggressively to $3.5 million. And we borrowed that in Mexico from a Mexican bank. Wow. On our assets in Mexico, and paid the 12%ers off. And now we owe $400,000 on the $20 million investment.
Wow, that's been a long road for you.
Yeah, it has. It's been fun, but it's it keeps you awake.
So you manage the plant in Chihuahua now?
Yes, it's ours. Our assets are ours. We have 2 plants. One's shut down, but the real estate is there. So we've done well in real estate also over there. So
you're still washing jeans?
And we're still washing blue jeans.
And that's in Meoqui, right?
That's in Meoqui, in the central part of Chihuahua.
You have good water there, I understand.
That's why we're there. That was a neat story in itself. I was looking for, Francisco Barrio was the governor when we went to Mexico. And he asked me, when I become governor, I want you to take your business on. I said, okay. So he became governor.
That's fantastic. Wow.
And,
it's a fascinating story. And I want to capture how you had to move and what was happening to the industry at the time. So we've come to the end of segment 1. I want to continue the story in segment 2. But it's a fascinating story on the ups and downs and how you take down a huge amount of debt. Just overwhelming. But you were successful in doing that. So thank you for watching segment 1. Stay tuned for segment 2.